Horror is probably my favorite genre of entertainment. From video games to movies, there isn't a whole lot of horror media that I absolutely hate. That said, I've always been skeptical of horror television. The medium of television isn't usually one that works for the horror genre. It's incredibly hard to build and release tension across an entire film, let alone across a multi-hour, multi-season series. Some of the anthology series have managed to subvert these expectations to varying degrees of success. Even those series, however, haven't managed to overcome significant precipitous drop-off in quality. That's why something like Netflix's The Haunting of Hill House is so utterly refreshing. Not only does it manage to tell a compelling story over the length of 10 episodes, it also builds incredible characters, tension-filled sequences, and human drama. The Haunting of Hill House is an exceptional series that manages to get the horror genre right. What makes The Haunting of Hill House an exceptional horror series is that it gets the fundamental things right. What a lot of horror media fails at is creating a compelling story and cast of characters. Many horror films have a compelling lead and a decent enough story, but really fail to develop the themes within that story and the characters that you care about. The Haunting of Hill House does it all. Wonderful story? Check. Engaging plot? Check. Fully realized characters? Check. Not only that, but the show manages to also bring all of the horror tropes in as well, and absolutely nails them. While I didn't find the show to be all that scary, I think that the astounding and often overwhelming sense of dread oozes from every scene. There are long takes down dark hallways. There are ominous shots of just a door. Then there are the ghosts that are hidden throughout almost every single scene of the show. The ghosts are well hidden, incredibly well placed throughout. There are several that you see throughout the show, such as the bent neck lady, who have some of the most unnerving and ghastly designs of ghosts that I have ever seen put to film. Ghost stories really depend on just how disturbing these spirits can be, and The Haunting of Hill House doesn't disappoint. Another area that the show doesn't skip on is its characters. Each and every single character is layered and complex. The main focus is on the 5 siblings of the Crane family and follows them during their time as children inside of the titular house, as well as them as grown adults. The reason that this structure works is because of the story that the show is trying to tell. The scenes with the children illuminate the ghost of the house, sure, but they also illuminate the ghost of the adults. Take for instance the character of Luke. When the show begins, the adult Luke is a drug addict that has alienated his siblings by consistently lying to them and stealing from them. The scars of his childhood have led him down the path to his present circumstances. Once the show starts looking at the characters as a child, light is completely shed on why he is the way that he is as an adult. Luke isn't the only character that this holds true for either. Some of the adult siblings aren't being haunted by the effects brought on from childhood trauma. Sometimes it's from other experiences. The character of Shirley, for instance, suffers from the consequences of her own actions as an adult. The same goes for Steven, who is possibly my favorite character in the show simply because of his truly wonderful character arc, not to mention Michael Huisman's utterly terrific portrayal. And the hauntings don't only affect the siblings. We also get to see the effects it has on the father figure of Hugh and the mother Olivia. Although Olivia is only seen in the past sequences, her story is a fascinating look at guilt and personal failings. These metaphorical ghosts that bear weight on the characters can be seen in all of the performances in remarkable ways. I've already glossed over Michael Huisman's brilliance, but what about the rest of the cast? Well, it's pretty much incredible across the board. Carla Gugino is, as always, an utterly fantastic revelation. Her performances never fail to deliver, but here she manages to outdo herself. Little twitches and blinks of the eye and half smiles show off her unbelievable acting chops. Henry Thomas, Elliot from E.T. in case you weren't aware, plays Hugh with a vulnerability but also a silent strength, and his future self is played equally as great by Timothy Hutton. All of the children are fairly strong and their performances never detract from the show like some child actors can do. The adult counterparts are all unbelievable in their performances. Oliver Jackson Cohen's Luke is a stellar exercise in character. Kate Siegel is as wonderful as ever, and she plays off the stellar Elizabeth Reiser in wonderful interactions. Finally, we come to Victoria Pedretti and her work as Nell. With limited screen time compared to most of the other actors, Pedretti manages to steal the show and also becomes its beating heart. She wrings every bit of emotion she possibly can from the simplest of actions. She is an utter revelation and deserves more recognition than she gets. This brings me to the final thing I'd like to talk about, the direction. I like Mike Flanagan as an artist. Hush is a really creative and competently made slasher, and his work on Oculus is quite fantastic. I'm not the biggest fan of Gerald's game, but I recognize the craftsmanship that went into it. He really outdid everything else he's done with this show, though. There's an unflinchingly cold sense of dread throughout the entire show. Whether it is actually a ghastly ghoul taunting the children, or just a simple conversation between characters, there's always a sense of tension that is just palpable. Partly it's due to the really fantastic writing, and partly it is due to the really fantastic cinematography. The colors in the show are muted but still seem to pop somehow, and the lighting always manages to be moody. The moods that are set by slow pans down hallways and sometimes breakneck edits. As I stated before, the constant presence of ghosts only helps to set that creepy mood over the top. It's really spectacular stuff. There's some things that I don't find all that spectacular. I think that some of the characters don't get the screen time that they really deserve. I also think that the show's pacing is off in some points. This is partly due to the structure, but had it been structured in any other way, I'm honestly not sure that it would even work. My biggest complaint, however, is that the show just isn't scary to me. To be fair, I'm pretty desensitized to horror at this point, and rarely do I actually get scared. But the show really fails to deliver on much of the build-up that comprises it. There are a few scenes that are genuinely chilling, especially involving Luke as a child, but they are few and far in between. There's also a noticeable lack of genuinely good jump scares. There's one that actually got to me, but unfortunately most of them fall flat. This doesn't really damage the series all that much though, because the other elements make up for it in every possible way. TV just isn't welcoming to the horror genre. There are plenty of examples of this holding true. Supernatural, while innovative in its own right during the first couple of seasons, was never all that scary, and was focused on telling a story about family. It, however, overstayed its welcome after the initial 6-season story was concluded. American Horror Story fared better in its horror due to it being an anthology series, and has managed to stay popular, but hasn't been good in quite some time. It's not necessarily the fault of those creators either. Most of it is because of the limitations of the genre in the medium. The Haunting of Hill House manages to sidestep almost all of those problems. The acting is beyond incredible, and the direction manages to keep things moody. Despite a noticeable lack of scares, the show is carried by the things that most horror gets wrong. The characters and story keep you compelled to continue watching. That's its most interesting trait. That's also why I think that it is one of the only examples of television horror done right.
Thanks everyone for watching this video. Please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that then you're notified on all of the content released on the Culture Pop channel. Also, don't forget to share this channel with your friends so that then they can also enjoy all the content that Culture Pop has to offer.